all these headlines circling around about a Cold War between the United States and China, and even both leaders talking about this openly in press conferences and speeches. This begs the question that we all should be asking ourselves. Are we in a Cold War? Are we heading into a Cold War? And what does it mean for our portfolios and our investments as a whole? I do recommend you guys stay to the end of this video. If there is one video that you have watched in this year, in 2021, this is the video to stay and watch to the end, because it will make you a lot of money and give some clarity to the situation before people start to freak out and you start to see crazy headlines, stocks selling off, or any of that stuff. So I do recommend you guys stay to the end of this video. But first, before we dive into it, I am not going to ask you guys to hit the like button or subscribe. That is totally your decision. What I will do is ask you guys to comment down below. Let me know what you think about the situation. Are we in a Cold War? Are we going into a Cold War? Have we been in a Cold War? Let me know down below. I respond to every comment and I love to hear from you guys. But without any further ado, let's get into it. We are already off to a rocky start in 2021 with headlines like this. Xi Jinping warns of new Cold War if US keeps up protectionism, and goes even as far as to say in these quotes and speeches, in quotes, to build small circles to start a new Cold War, to reject, threaten, or intimidate others, to willingly impose decoupling, supply disruptions, or sanctions, and to create isolation or estrangement will only push the world into division and even confrontation. And now, even as of today, there is a new headline, a new article, that a deal was reached between China and Iran, and the headline does say Iran and China signed agreement aimed at strengthening their economic and political alliance. So this is obviously not good. We have been trying to get Iran to back away from nuclear power, nuclear nukes, all that for quite a long time now, and to have China basically go behind our back and sign an agreement with Iran is clearly not a good thing. Now, it goes on to say, China and Iran, both subject to U.S. sanctions, signed a 25-year cooperation agreement on Saturday to strengthen their long-standing economic and political alliance. It says, in quotes, relations between the two countries have now reached a level of strategic partnership, and China seeks to comprehensively improve relations with Iran. This is also the video that was connected to the article, so you guys should take a look and read this for yourself. I know I didn't go over the whole thing, but I'm going to play the video for you guys because it is pretty interesting.
But I would describe it more as countries lining up for a Cold War between the United States and China. And of course, you will find that countries which are on the wrong side of what I would say the new wall, the trade wall, whatever you want to call it, between China and the US, these countries will get together just as the US allies will eventually get together, even the Europeans, in confronting China. So what we're looking at here is talk about the Chinese actually developing a naval base on Iranian soil. But at the same time, the Belt and Road Initiative can never be separated from China's geopolitical ambitions. If you can sail a tanker or a freighter into a port, you can also sail a cruiser or a destroyer. So essentially, this is going to be viewed not just as an extension of the Belt and Road initiative, bringing investment to these developing economies. It's going to be immediately seen as outreach by China's geopolitical ambitions and confronted accordingly.
At first glance, those words sound pretty threatening, but let's take a look at what Biden said in his first official presidential speech about 3 days ago regarding this exact topic about China.
I see stiff competition with China. China has an overall goal, and I don't criticize them for the goal, but they have an overall goal to become the leading country in the world, the wealthiest country in the world, and the most powerful country in the world. That's not going to happen on my watch, because the United States is going to continue to grow and expand. They're now projecting it will. We have to have democracies working together. Before too long, I'm going to invite an alliance of democracies to come here to discuss the future. And so we're going to make it clear that in order to deal with these things, we are going to hold China accountable to follow the rules. Whether it relates to the South China Sea or the North China Sea or the agreement made on Taiwan or a whole range of other things. I made it clear that no American president, at least one did, but no American president ever backed down from speaking out of what's happening in the Uyghurs, what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in country. That's who we are. The moment a president walks away from that, as the last one did, is the moment we begin to lose our legitimacy around the world. I spent hours upon hours with him alone with an interpreter, my interpreter and his, going into great detail. He's very, very straightforward. Doesn't have a democratic with a small d bone in his body, but he's a smart guy. He's one of the guys like Putin who thinks that autocracy is the wave of the future. Democracy can't function in an ever complex world. When I was elected and he called to congratulate me, I think to the surprise of the China experts who were his people on the call as well as mine listening, we had a 2-hour conversation for 2 hours. And we made several things clear to one another. I made it clear to him again, what I've told him in person on several occasions, that we're not looking for confrontation, although we know there will be steep competition.
So it sure does sound like we are already in a Cold War by the statements of the President of the United States and the communist leader of China. So we're going to take a look at what happened during the last Cold War with the United States and Russia as far as economic growth. Because after all, that's what a Cold War is. Obviously, in the saying, it's not violence as far as like shooting each other, but it's a reason to spend money, innovate, build up your military, build up the economy, and put the country in a position to be the winning side if a war were to break out. So from when the Cold War started between the United States and Russia, our gross domestic product was around $250 billion annually, and by the time it ended in 1991, our economy was at over $6 trillion in gross domestic product per year. So this is a huge increase, around 40x in this time period. Now, this was a long period, and if we specifically look at 1980, from when it was really starting to get hot, really 1970, it really started to get bad, and a lot of people thought we were inevitably gonna be going to war with Russia. So in 1970, our gross domestic product was around $1 trillion annually, and by the time it ended in 1991, our economy 6x in growth from 1970 to 1991 from $1 trillion to $6 trillion annually. So this type of conflict, Cold Wars, do promote intense growth in economies. So it does look very good as far as growing an economy. And that is what I would imagine will happen this time around. We will see massive innovation and infrastructure scaling up, as well as military scaling up as well. With all of this being said, I do want to be very clear. China will pass the American economy. It is a well-known fact by everybody involved on both parties, and that is their ultimate goal. Everybody does know this, so this is not anything new. But they weren't expecting this to happen until 2040, but the coronavirus pandemic put us behind on schedule. So now China has a real shot of catching up to us, and this Cold War will be more important, especially than the last one with Russia, because there is a lot at stake. Now, China's overall GDP is sitting at almost $15 trillion, whereas ours is sitting around $21 trillion. So they only have to go up about 21% in their total economy to pass the American economy. So this is a vitally important position we are in right now, and I do see growth with the US and Chinese economy and translating into stocks more directly coming in the next couple of years. So this is a great time to be invested, guys. And if you are not invested in Chinese companies and United States companies, that I think is a must. To summarize it up, I do think we are in a Cold War with China already. I think personally we have been in a Cold War with China since 2016 when Trump took office and put a precedence around China and outpacing China. After all, he called the coronavirus the China virus and still does to this day. So with that being said, what you guys can do about this is personally, I am investing in Chinese companies and American companies. Now, I do not want to sound all bearish here because it is not. This is actually a great opportunity and should spur a lot of growth for both countries. And I am fairly optimistic about the US economy compared to China. I would rather invest in the United States right now, but you cannot argue that the Chinese growth going ahead, just like that chart had showed you, will be pretty impressive going forward. So I do think you should invest in both. The only issue that I have and the only thing I worry about is the United States trying to regulate how much money gets invested overseas to China if we do go into a full-fledged, well-known Cold War. So that is one issue you guys should be aware of, and do not invest anything in Chinese companies you are not willing to lose at least 50% or 100% of in the worst case scenario. Now, I will not be selling any of my Chinese stocks, and I will not be buying Chinese stocks. I'm going to keep buying until I have a very, very good reason not to. If there's some regulation concerns that are starting to come out, that might be a good time to start liquidating some positions, especially if you are up significantly on them. But as of right now, I see no worry to liquidate anything or do anything like that. I do think the relationship between the United States and China will just become more competitive. I'm not sure if we will actually go into a labeled Cold War. After all, I do believe we have been in a unlabeled Cold War since Donald Trump took office as the 45th president of the United States. We have pretty much been in a Cold War with China, but nobody has been saying it like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more headlines and articles about this, and even some Chinese stocks start to sell off on some of these articles and news events. But that is not something I would personally be concerned about. I'm more concerned about what the actual company is doing and how they are performing. So that is my overall analysis about the situation. You guys got what is going on currently as far as our relationships between the countries, what happens during a Cold War as far as how the economy grows, and what you should do, what I am doing. It's not a recommendation, but that is what I am doing, and that's the best thing I could come up with for right now. Until we get more details, I will be updating this as more stuff comes out. But if you got anything useful out of the video, consider subscribing and make sure to comment down below. As well as, if you did make it to the end of this video, I have a Discord link in the description where you can join over there. I send out all of my buy and sell alerts for free. And I look forward to seeing you guys over there on the Discord, as well as down in the comments below. I will see you guys trading tomorrow and in the next video. Until then, stay cool. Peace out.